Good day, everyone, and welcome to the journey. I am Reverend Bobby, and today I have with me Miss Shekeela Mohammed. Ta-da! How you doing today, Shekeela?
I am doing magnificent and totally blessed.
Magnificent and totally blessed. So while I'm good and Shekeela is magnificently, totally excellent and blessed and all those things she always be, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Gospel of Robert, capital Gospel, capital Robert. Put the at sign in front of it and subscribe so that you can get all these good things whenever we be putting them out. So, Shekeela, tell us a little bit about you. Tell the people about you. Catch me up to what you've been up to.
What have I been up to? Well, let's see. The good news is I got my master's in theology, and I'm moving on toward the PhD, but I got my master's from the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary down in Florida, and I'm just thrilled about that. I'm looking to become a chaplain with a police force. And so I'm excited about that. And I'm behaving myself to
Oh
the
my
best
God.
I can.
That right there says it all. So tell me this, because you know I'm just getting to know you real well too. I was a chaplain for a ministry, extended hand. We did homeless work, and it was a very fulfilling position.
Mhm.
What made you come up with the bright idea or download it from God to be a chaplain for the police?
Well, it's not just the police. I've put in applications for a couple hospitals and a couple police forces, and I'm just waiting to hear from them. But I wanted something part time. I wanted something where I could use my experience and at the same time be able to learn a little bit more. And it just seemed like something that I would be interested in and something that I could be of service to.
Now, what is your former experience that you're going to be leaning on to propel you into this new adventure?
Well, my former experience is I was a bank officer for 32 years, so I don't know how well that goes, but I learned how to deal with people with in different roles. Um, I dealt with negotiable bonds and I dealt with trading on the New York Stock Exchange. And so you get to know people pretty well. But at the same time, it really wasn't until I started listening to the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman and I started paying attention to what she was saying. I always take notes so that I could go back home and study what the person said. And we used to have Savior's Days at Christ Universal Temple. So I was used to being there. But I would come to the church maybe once or twice a month, and I would sit in the back and I would listen to her. And I'd just be writing. She just be talking and I'd be writing. Okay. And then I would go home and I say, "Oh, this is interesting," And she was opening me up to things that I hadn't realized and I didn't know that I didn't know, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense. But
Oh,
this
certainly
one,
it does, because it's the things that you don't know that usually hang you up and keep you in a place of I used to call it the hamster wheel going round and round. Excuse me, go ahead.
yeah, but that's exactly what it was. When I was growing up, I grew up in the Nation of Islam, and I always remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the children. We were sitting at the dining room table, and he said, "I don't expect all of you to stay with the nation." He said, "Once you get everything that you got, you're supposed to move on and keep on learning."
Mm-hmm.
And then the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, when we were over at the final call,
Yeah.
this particular Sunday that he was teaching, he said, if you've gotten everything you feel that you can get from here, get up out that seat and let someone else have that seat.
Mm-hmm.
And that stayed with me. I mean, it really did what both of them said. And you know how something is in your mind and you're saying, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. But I got married. And, you know, when you get married, you want to be as supportive. And he was there and I had the support. So I had to hang in there for a little while. But the
Right.
more I started going over to Christ Universal Temple and listening to Reverend Johnny speak, it just it was almost like, look, you need to make a move. And it was so funny. This one particular Sunday, she was teaching, and I don't know who she was talking to, but she was looking at me, and I was way in the back. And
She
she
was
said,
talking to you.
I think so, because she said, so what you gonna do? How long you gonna sit on the fence?
Yeah.
And that's all she said. And then she kept right on talking. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? You
But you
know?
know, she was a quite amazing. She was quite an amazing woman. She could feel that one person and find them and say something dead to them in the middle of her sermon. You'd be like, I know she ain't say that to me, and she
I
go right on
know,
about what she
I
do.
know. But then I came and I sat down and I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I had wanted to take the classes and I didn't feel right signing up for the classes because I was just a guest. I didn't know that anyone could take those classes. But I just, the more I kept thinking about it and listening to her, I said, okay, it's time for me to make a move. So I sent my letter of resignation in. I mean, that went okay with some and it didn't go okay with the others. But me being me, I really didn't give a flying hoot. I
Well,
had to
now
decide what
that
I
was
needed
with
to
the
do.
nation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I didn't have a problem with the minister or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just, you know, sometimes you got know-it-all folks, and know-it-all folks can't tell you about you,
Well, you
what
know,
you need to
they,
do.
they be everywhere if you look around. Go
Yes,
go
that's true.
go on ahead. Don't get me
You know,
started.
but I decided that okay, I came and I joined, and then I started taking the classes. And I remember the very first class I had was Reverend Alberta Ware.
Mhm.
She scared the heck out of me. She was mean. And she turned out to be the sweetest person I mean, in fact, she was my capstone advisor for when I was getting my master's. But that first class, it was like, whoa. But then, you know, you have to actually open up your mind
You do.
and be willing to learn. See, people can teach you. You know, when I was growing up, my grandmother said you can learn from the devil.
Yeah.
But people are willing to teach you. The issue must be that you must be willing to listen and learn.
That's it. We
That's
we
that's
go
where the
we
big thing comes in.
we
Because you
go
can learn anything. You walking down the street and you can observe something, and that's a lesson. Whether
well
it's good,
see,
bad, or indifferent, it can be a lesson.
but that's what you talked about earlier when we first started. You said, and I would come over there and sit in the back, and I'd be writing and writing and writing, and then I started paying attention because it's different. You can write and write and write, but if you're not paying attention, then you don't get it.
You
Just like
don't get it.
you said, it's always about opening and paying attention so you can learn something new. And because we get a little like we know it all a little bit sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you have to remember, I was coming into an organization that was totally different from what I grew up in.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it was, I had to take everything that I knew
yeah,
and, and say, okay, I'm going to add to it or I'm
yeah,
going to take away,
yeah,
you know. So, and then the more I learned, the more it started to convince me to look deeper. And I'll be honest, one of the things that, and I've taught on this on Sundays. At right now, I go to our Temple of Spiritual Truth, which is on the west side, and I have been blessed to be allowed to teach. But one of the things I have talked about is religion,
hmm
and it finally taught. I finally learned that religion has absolutely nothing to do with God. It doesn't matter what religion you are, Muslim, Catholic, Baptist, Christian, it doesn't matter. God did not set down a religion. God is total and absolute faith. That is God.
The analogy that I use is like imagine a bicycle wheel. Some of the spokes cross, some of the spokes never touch one another, but they are connected to hub, and that hub is God. So
And that's it.
it doesn't matter what you call it. If you discipline yourself to the principles they laid out on, this would be a much better place. Okay, don't get me going. Tell me more
But see,
about your experience, girl.
that's the way I like to look at it, because when you get hung up on a certain thing, it closes your mind. And one of the things, the subjects I spoke on one time was dealing with free will. God gave us free will, and we act a fool with it.
Yeah.
We get hung up on certain things, and we have to remember that God created everything. And so when you start getting hung up on, I'm this religion and only, and you're wrong for, no, that's wrong. You have to deal with the faith. And so anyway, I want to leave that alone, because it's still, that can be a little raw to some people.
Well,
But
but you're telling the absolute truth, because in my studies of different faiths and different things, and the sex within those faiths always seems like everybody put their dukes up to my way is the highway, and all the things I've studied didn't have any of it that put your dukes up in the air, fight each other, had nothing to do with God or being a better person, and that just
right.
tripped me out.
Yeah. And see, one of the things I decided to do was to sit back and really examine myself
Mhm.
and look at the pros and cons. And
And
then
what
I
did
said,
you find in
oh,
yourself?
I'm not going to tell you everything.
Come on, child.
But
Spill, spill.
I took out my little notebook. You know how I am about my notebooks. And I wrote down my pros and cons. And the really bad thing is I have more cons than pros. you know? And so I said, oh, I got to work on this. I got to work on that.
You're hilarious.
Because I am your typical Capricorn in some ways, not always, but in some ways. Okay, I can work a nerve. Yeah. But I decided that I needed to look at certain aspects of myself.
Mhm.
And one of the hardest things that I'm still working on, and Reverend Robert, he laughs at me about this, but I'm working hard to a degree on being able to forgive. I'm not easy at forgiving and letting go. Okay, and a lot of that has to do with, and just give you a little background. I grew up as an abused child to the point that the courts actually removed me from the home and put me in a child care shelter. And back then in the 60s, they really didn't look after Black children like that.
Right,
So it was really bad. But
right,
I spent, when you get that pain deep inside of you, it's difficult to let it go. And it's difficult to really trust people, because you're always looking at them, questioning what's your game, what are you up to,
right.
and that's
As well you should, because of the experience. So don't beat up yourself. Go ahead.
right. But at the same time, you don't want to beat up the innocent either.
That's true.
You don't want to beat up the innocent, and you need to be able, I think, people say forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. Since I haven't really gotten to that forgiveness stage so I can say, oh yeah, it was for me. I'm still kind of working on that. And you know, it's wrong to carry a grudge against somebody who's already dead. Because what can you do?
But
So
but
you are
but
hurting
yeah,
yourself.
so you can only fix it within yourself at this point.
Right.
But listen, you mind me giving you my definition of forgiveness? Now you know it's a Reverend Bobby definition, right? Number one.
Okay.
But do you mind if I give it to you?
No, sir. Go ahead.
Reverend Bobby on Forgiveness by Reverend Bobby. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are so I can deal with you effectively.
Oh, I like that.
I knew you would, because it shifts the perspective, and And don't worry, I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay,
I'm gonna send
you
it to
see
you.
me pulling up.
Yeah, don't worry. You know I got you. I'll be over there in your ear at church, everything. So you go get it. But it shifts the perspective, back to, what I didn't know or understand at the time,
Mhm.
and I can then take that and look at myself and to the degree as you inch along toward you that healing place and state, because it's not an overnight thing, is it?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You know, and it's, although I'm learning now to be at peace with
Mhm,
myself.
mhm,
I don't beat myself up over anything.
mhm,
And I'm a firm believer. When I feel that it's time to go, I'm gone.
mhm,
And they tease me at church because as soon as we say that closing prayer, I'm out the door.
mhm.
You know, and it's like, I've had to learn how to open up myself there, and to accept the love that's coming to me from the members of the church. And I really appreciate that. I really do.
Well, you cool,
Um,
I mean, you cool, you serious about your spiritual growth. I mean, you serious about that. Let me tell
and it's
you.
fun. You know what? It's fun. It's fun learning new things. I have a
Mhm.
library in my home, all types of books, and I've read every book in my library at least 3 times. And then it's fun to go back and reread something and see something that you read, but
Did you
now you're
grow up
seeing it
reading?
differently.
Did you grow up reading?
Yes, that was reading was always my escape. I could
Mhm.
escape into books, and I love to read. Reading brings me total peace.
Mhm.
Between the reading and the crocheting, I'm a happy camper.
Oh, my grandmama used to crochet. She had me doing a little bit once upon a time when I was younger. I don't know nothing about it, but that was her pullback peace thing, to
It
sit
is. It's peaceful.
and
What I
crochet.
do is I make Afghans, and every year Christ Universal Temple, we the ambassadors of love, we
Mhm.
take different gifts and things to senior citizens and homeless shelters and like that. So I make the blankets, the Afghans, and we take them and give them to the homeless and to the senior citizens. And so we've been doing that now. I've been doing it now, I think 4 years. So this will be 5 years
Well, I'm writing
coming up.
everything down because I'm keeping you because you got skills. Just know that.
Lord, and then we have a electrical contracting company that we started 25 years ago. So I do all of the books, the financial statements, the profit and loss. I do the corporate taxes, and I have to accept the fact that I'm slightly a little bit of a nerd because it's fun doing
Well,
that.
I know people that do that, and you have the mentality to do that. Not that you're a bean counter person, because you're not. Because you're open. You just have those skills. My sister in Atlanta does that. She does that for Georgia Pacific. Well, she was doing it for Georgia Pacific, and now the state of Georgia. But what solace do you find in your numbers? Why you like numbers so much?
Because it's orderly, and
Aha.
you always have to get to the bottom line.
And
There's
numbers
no
don't lie,
escaping.
do they?
No, and there's no escaping that bottom line. Sooner or later, you got to get to the bottom line, and that bottom line has to be in balance. If you're out of balance a penny, you need to go back and find that penny, and then straighten it up.
That
You
that's
know.
that's not nerdish. It's just the one of the skills I can do if I force myself, but that's
Hmm.
not my what would you call it? My best stuff, because I used to do 501c3s and all that stuff,
Okay.
incorporate people, get them in business and stuff.
Hmm.
And it's easy to do at startups, so I'm not going to claim too much skills. But you must be doing that for a long time, and it must be intricate working with an electrical contractor, because I used to work with one, and man, keeping track of that money and stuff is like intense.
Well, it takes a while because you got to get him trained. See, this was a husband, so you
Uh,
got to get them trained that I need every receipt. I don't care what you spent it on. If you went and spent 10 cents for a candy bar, well, they
right,
don't
right.
cost 10 cents, but I want that receipt Because if you bought that candy bar and had to eat it while you were working, I can write that off.
I used to use my, all my mints and stuff because I had a limo service. That was for work, so my breath would smell good because so they would like me and stuff.
There you go.
I ain't lying.
There you go. There you go. Whatever you, but you got to keep your receipt. And
Yeah.
we were always getting audited. They kind of stopped it now, but it tickled me when we got audited by the state of Illinois, and they offered me a job, and I looked at them like, "What?" They offered me a job. I said, that was so funny.
That's when you know you good.
That's
You
when
can
you know you
you
got
can
it
say
going on.
I must be pretty good. They audited me and offered me a job.
You know, and I was like, that was so cool, but
That's
you just
funny. That's
but
funny.
see, and I try and I try and talk to people and explain to them is that you should never be afraid of an audit, because see, first of all, they're gonna send you a list of what it is they want. They send that to you.
Right.
And so all you have to do is have everything on that list in order.
Yeah.
And so when they come in, you done checked out, yep, yep, yep. And they looking at it. And one auditor came in and she just sat down, she looked at my list, and then she signed off. And I said, "What you doing?" I said, "Wait, hold up." I stopped her. I said, "You haven't looked at all this stuff that I didn't print it out." And she looked at me, she said, "It's the people who don't have their paperwork together that I start looking at." She said, the people end up and they sitting there waiting on me. She said, "I don't have to worry about this."
Right.
And I'm looking at her like, it
Yeah.
took me hours to get all the bank state, everything together.
I
I want
know.
you to look at what I did.
I know. I know. You be mad. I did all this work, and you just gonna say okay because you trust me. You better look at that stuff.
You better look at it. But that's how they do. They really, and they expect you to know what you're doing and to have it. And if they sent you a list telling you what they want, don't sit there talking about, "Well, I didn't know." You have it lined up, waiting on it in order.
But that shows a certain level of expertise and um what's the just being good at what you do when you have everything in order like that, and and it leaves you with no exposure because you got everything that they could possibly want because they told you what they want. Now how does that work for you? Because I'm not going to tell you how that works for me because I'll be very particular about certain things. When you're dealing with other people that ain't that particular about the way that they do things.
Well, I strive not to have to deal with them. Those are his customers. And really, the only time that you're going to have to deal with me is if you mess up on the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he does the job, I expect him to be paid in full. I expect you to walk through the door with the money. I'm a firm believer. Bring the money and everything else home, leave the garbage at the front door.
Yeah.
So I want to see the invoices. I know where you've been. I'm the one typing up the invoices.
Yeah.
So I know how much money should be coming. And I want to know where every penny went, what went on material, what went on gas, and the way I know it is for a receipt.
Yeah.
But dealing with other people, I've never really considered myself a super people person because, as I mentioned one time during one of my lessons at church, I can be a tad bit, just a little bit, a smidgen controlling.
Oh no,
Now,
get out of here, child. Yeah, everybody call me at this time so we can do this and we can get started at 10 a.m. on the dot. I was like, whoa, yes, ma'am. I thought you was my major friend. She used to
and
jump
then you
out of
didn't call me on
airplanes.
time.
I
But
know,
I
right?
can be a little bit controlling. So I don't want to upset his customers. So I don't have anything to do with him. I don't need to talk to your customers. Those are your customers. Only thing I need to do is the money. Now, if they mess up on the money, like we had this one guy, in fact, he was a doctor and he didn't pay us. And he come talking about he was too busy to be writing out checks. And I'm like, we weren't too busy to do the work. So I put a lien on him. He did not like that. I don't give a flying hoot. I got my money. I don't have
And
a problem putting a lien on you.
yeah. But that's what you're supposed to do now. Let's come back full circle and when did you apparently it was out at Johnny's, but when did you get so compassionate about your spiritual walk and this teaching that you wanted to pick it up, carry it forth, teach it, be it, live it? When did that happen?
I kind of think it happened when I was young, because I used to always get in trouble for asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was always asking, see, you can ask questions, but you need to know who you're asking the questions of, because a lot of people are not capable of answering. They don't know the
Yeah.
answer, and you can upset them.
Yes.
So I would
Yeah.
always ask questions, and that used to always get me in trouble. So I learned to keep my questions to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started listening to Reverend Johnny and actually joined Christ Universal Temple and taking classes, my questions were welcome. And like with one of the things, I would ask Reverend Alberta questions, and if she didn't have the answer, she'd say, "Let me get back to you,"
Right.
and she would actually get back to me.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, so I've always been I've always had questions in my mind, um, especially when it always seemed like a conflict to me between God and religion, just like between God and this so-called Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to people, well, how can you give Satan the same power and glory that you give God? I said, God does not have any partners.
Right.
And it wasn't until I came up to Christ Universal Temple and I started listening to her talk about Satan. That's your thoughts. Okay. It's
Yeah.
not no little person running around in no red suit. No, and God there's no competition with God. Okay. So you can't say the devil made me do it, or the devil's is it, or because you're putting him on the same level, and you can't do that.
Well,
That's your thoughts. That's you.
the only competition with God is when I don't be obedient, then I get a clunk. So I
There
get
you
back
go.
in line real quick.
There you go. But I've always had questions. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until in starting 2011, I was able to start getting clarity on the questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then went back to my books that I have and started reading them again, and um, getting different insight, getting a different insight on the same books, but a different insight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dr. Is it Erica Rocco? Is it Rocco
Rocco
Erica?
Erico.
Right. I love his books. I have all of them, but it's enjoyable to reread his books
Mm-hmm.
and see something different that you didn't pick up on the first time, or
Well,
even the
you've
second
grown
time.
now. You've grown and you're more expansive in your willingness to accept. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah, and that's it. My willingness to accept, and you know what comes out of that for me
Uh-huh.
is my willingness to accept, to allow you to be whoever you want to be.
See that part.
Just go on. If that's you, fine.
That
As
part.
long as you don't try and push it on me, as long as you don't disrespect me and I'm
That
not
part.
disrespecting you, we can get along.
That part. Yeah. It's that simple, isn't it?
It's very simple. It's very simple. I give you a good example. I know certain Black folks who voted what I considered the wrong way.
So do they
And,
now.
they regretting it left and right now. But it's like I look at them and I tell them, okay, you know what? There are two things we're not going to discuss is politics and religion, because you're not going to like what I have to say, and I'm definitely not going to like what you have to say.
Well, it just sometimes gets me, and this doesn't have anything to do with which way anybody does anything. But after 400 years, you ain't caught on yet. I mean, like,
You,
come on, I'm not even that stupid. Now, I don't
you
say
know,
a lot because I get passionate and stuff. I've asked God to keep me out of a lot of things. And guess what? Those things I've asked to be kept out of, He's putting me right into the middle. And
right
about
in
our
the middle.
brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he was doing a ministers meeting over at the restaurant
Mhm,
upstairs.
mhm,
And one day we was all there. Sabrina was there because her boys is part of the nation. And I was there and stuff, and my TV show used to come out after his, on after his, and so I guess he was linger around, or his people would watch, and they said, "Check him out." So we became kind of like recognizable to each other. But he was leaving out, man. He broke out his ranks, man. Broke through his FOI ranks, came to hug me, and whispered in my ear, "Stay strong, brother." And he ain't never said a better thing to anyone on
Mhm.
this earth, because I carry that around in my heart 24/7, 365. Now,
And that's
here
it.
we come
But
at
you
the
know, I want
end.
to point out something. One
Yes.
thing is, see what we're going through now. And I wish I could teach on this, but you know, we have a certain platform that we have to stick to. But what we're going on now was actually, in my mind, put in place starting at the end of World War II. And
Yeah.
you got to study history.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at this. We are now in the past, I would say 10 years, private prisons have been built. Private prisons. That means they're for profit. Okay. Now I want you to stop and think, who is going into those prisons? Starting at the end of 1945, to me, this has been put in place. See, the politicians that we have now, they have been groomed for now.
Yeah. They,
Okay.
they go out and teach classes and be in front of their people and all that stuff to
Thank
groom
you. They have
us
been groomed for now. So
just
what
for
we're
now.
doing is we
13,
instead of instead
13
of
trillion dollar a year industry. Check out the numbers, boo. $13 trillion a year industry, boo. Go ahead. I
thank
ain't mean
you.
to
So
upset you.
so what we're doing is instead of educating our children, we have to prepare our communities. We have to build up our resources. You out here taking your bullets and your guns, murdering each other, when that person that you murdered is probably the person who can help your mama, bring food to her, look after you, have your back. But
Yeah.
the key thing that we have to remember, just like with the people that they call illegals that they're trying to send back to their countries, mainly to Mexico. Well, they're not needed anymore because our children are the ones who are going to go into those prisons and they're going to work for free,
Well, the
picking
thing
cotton,
is,
picking fruit.
and that's the plan, and that's the plan. I mean, you got it. I mean, you were saying if me and you traded places, and I spoke out of my head, the words would be the same. So since we're into that, since we know that, because I told God, man, listen, this is classic. It's classic, man. I said, I know I'm step by step, but I don't have the resources to go up against them. Guess what God told me? God said, but you got me. And we're going to end it on that because I don't know what the heck that means. So, Shekeela, give us a word to keep us holding on as we pass through this current situational stuff in our lives, because we're strong people, we're proud people, and we're going to get this done.
Never stop being afraid to learn, never stop being afraid to bear witness, and never stop stepping up to the plate.
Never stop stepping up to, even if you strike out. Get up there, get up there, get up there. Well, thank you so much, Shekeela, for being here on this segment of the journey. We're gonna do this again. And people, don't forget, Gospel of Robert, capital GOSPELOF, capital ROBERT. Put the at sign in front. Go over to the channel. It's the past recorded segments of the journey. You can click on the live category and you get to check some of them out. And there's short clips on there too. You could do that. But whatever you do, journey well from here. Reverend Bobby says bye. Shekeela, you gonna tell them bye?
Praise the Lord. Bye.
And we out for now. Take
Okay.
care, everyone. Peace.